Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Welcome. It's Game Over Montreal, and the Montreal Canadiens have lost this one after leading 2-0 against the Washington Capitals in what looked like it was going to be a really fun game to talk about and quickly became unfun. And we're going to have a story of the game to start this show out. And it's going to be stats are a liar sometimes, borrowing from It's Always Sunny a little bit. And we're going to go through some of the stuff that I've been looking at in this game because I see a lot of upset people, and I get it. Totally get it. The vibes were good to start. The vibes were killed by the end. But before we get too deep into it, I got to tell you about Hyperdrive Hockey because, folks, this show is killing it. Max, Daff, and Kev are bringing together amazing stories every single week, breaking them down in unique ways, and they've got this awesome new segment called Not Even Sorry, where they're bringing Game Over hosts head-to-head against each other. Are we lifting up? Are we tearing things down? Are you positive or negative this week? And then they go back and forth. It's super fun. I really encourage you to check it out. It's a great show, and it's going to be a huge part of the network going forward. I can't wait to see what this show looks like in a couple of years, because already in a couple of months, seeing how far the three of them have come together to build this show and to get to be like in sync and building that chemistry in a second language. It's been incredible. So go check out Hyperdrive Hockey, subscribe wherever you like your podcasts as well. Give it a rating once you listen to it, because that always helps us out. And hey, if you really like it, you can jump on Patreon and subscribe to us through there as well and get some perks. I'm actually going to be reworking the Patreon next week. It's at the top of my to-do list because we have to make sure that we're giving out some cool stuff, and I'm going to rework what we're going to do there. But let's get into this game. I'm here with Mark Dumont, who I haven't let talk yet. He's just laughed a couple of times because Mark likes to talk. Mark, how did you feel about this game?
It was pretty good.
I thought so too. Yeah. I thought it was like, at least the beginning, I thought it was more of what we've seen. Like the layering has happened, right? Like things are getting a little bit better.
When's the last time, Andrew, before tonight, the Habs got a clean breakaway?
Oh, they had a few
games ago
recently. They haven't scored on any.
If you get one a game, it's above average, right? They had 6 in one period. Listen, a bunch of people went after me on Twitter saying I had rose-colored glasses because I said the Capitals were the better team. They were. It's as simple as that. The Habs played well, but you're gonna run into these situations where you're playing teams that are top of the standings and you're gonna lose. So yeah, well, first of all, like if you're gonna automatically attack the source, you don't have an argument to begin with, but this is going to happen, and I don't think you can be upset. What we should be talking about is why isn't Logan Thompson on Team Canada, but that's a whole other issue. I thought the Habs played relatively well tonight.
Yeah, I thought so too. Logan Thompson should absolutely be on Team Canada. I thought Montembeault as well was great tonight. I wouldn't really count the goals as a fault of his. I thought he made several spectacular saves. And you're right, Mark. The Capitals are a much better team. It's weird that they're better, because they were terrible.
And their underlying numbers are fantastic too. It's not like a fluke there, you know. So even without Ovechkin, what the hell's going on?
They're a very different team than they have been in recent years, and I feel like they have a very cool like found family thing going on, where it's like a bunch of people who didn't work out in different areas for different reasons. And they're all kind of putting it together and lunch paling it up. And they're not really playing a boring style either. They're playing really fun hockey. Like, this is a really fun hockey game.
And it goes against everything we've been like pontificating about for the last 5 years, you know, like do the roster turnover, get rid of Ovechkin. You know, I bet you if you and I were the GM, we would have traded Ovechkin last year. You know what I mean?
I don't think I would trade Ovechkin because the goal thing. Right, you want that to happen in a Capitals jersey.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like in terms of what we like always tell everyone is, you know, move those assets. It's all about maximizing asset value, and they didn't necessarily do that. So I love to see it happen, and I love that it's happening without Ovechkin as well. And I know Logan Thompson was the star tonight, but it's really cool to see Charlie Lindgren find a starter job in the NHL because he was in that same bullshit situation with Caden Primo in the AHL. And he got out of it. And it was almost by accident, kind of like Montembeault, that he became the starter. But good for Charlie Lindgren because he's one of the nicest. Like we constantly say, this guy's a good guy. This guy's a good guy. almost none of it's true. But Charlie Lindgren, very good guy.
Yes, Charlie Lindgren, noted good guy. Let's not get too far off this game because I do want to bring back the numbers because we talk about the numbers on this show a lot. I'm an analyst. You're an analyst. We're employing people at Game Over who are able to dig into numbers and layer it with video and talk about things in a very nuanced way.
Yeah.
And I think if somebody didn't watch the game tonight and they looked at the even strength numbers in this game, they would assume the Canadiens played like really terrible hockey after the first period. And I would caution two different things. Number one, don't read too deeply into things like expected goals the night of, because those metrics do get changed and adjusted over time a lot, especially the public ones, because things get changed in the NHL all the time. Shot locations get changed, right? And the other is you do actually have to use some level of reasoning, right? Like Mark and I have been on this a lot about the whole Twitter idea of I'm going to post a chart and therefore this player is bad thing. That's not how reality works. If you watch,
they don't understand. That's the key part.
Exactly. And like, if you watch this game and you saw the Canadiens get what, 4, 5, maybe 6 breakaways in the third period alone, and then you go over to Natural Stat Trick and see that they were credited
2 high danger chances.
One high danger chance at 5-on-5 in the period. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. It's just bullshit. Like, that's not reality. And I'm not saying that the Capitals didn't get a lot of scoring chances. They did. They were played great. But I think the numbers tonight do not tell the story.
No. And even we talk about expected goals, let's be honest, in a vacuum for one game, it's fairly useless as a tool, right? It's more to kind of look towards the future. It's predictive more than anything. So, yeah, I think especially for the Canadiens, now Ian's in the chat mentioning that they collapsed against the Capitals in the third period last night. So, yeah, there's maybe some, preparation they could have done a little bit better. But again, we're talking about one of the best teams in the league versus one of the worst teams in the league. And even though the Habs had that resurgence recently, they're far from being out of the field. So, I just don't, especially with all the games the Habs have put forth this season, there's a lot where you could put an X on it and be like, they didn't even try. Tonight they tried, and against most goalies in the NHL, 6 breakaways is 1 or 2 goals, right? So what's the efficiency, like 30% usually?
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
30 to 33%.
Yeah,
100% it should have been. And we could talk about whether or not that's a problem with execution or like maybe the shot quality is not high. I don't think it was about shot quality. Like Suzuki put like 15 moves on his breakaway. It was ridiculous that Thompson stopped that. Like the fact is Thompson was great. He also got pretty lucky on several sequences. I thought Monty had to battle through some really unlucky spots. Like the puck was bouncing all over the place in his zone tonight. And like the go-ahead goal for Washington was blind dumb luck. Like I know players have to be in the right positions and everything.
Well, the Wilson rebound there?
Yeah, like off of Montembeau's blocker way up high in the air.
Really tripped up too. It gave him that like half a second. He actually recovered really nicely, but once separate, game
like
over,
you run that play 500 times, you probably scored just once.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of thing that I don't really consider that heavily in terms of like criticizing the Canadiens and criticizing Montembeau. So this is one that I think you should come away from feeling relatively positively. Let's just run through the chat quickly, Mark, and say hi to some folks. I see our great friend Kay is here as always. Thomas is here. Paradiggity, I think that's a new-ish member of the chat.
He was here
so
the last chat we had with me and Kay had a great show there. I forget what the sport. We had a really fun show, and Paradiggity was all over that one. I believe
also,
Europe as well, right? Also in Europe.
Oh, really? Another one in Europe?
Maybe I don't know. Possibly Vietnam. I don't know.
Trizak's here.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
MFM is here. Let's see. Ian is here. I love Ian. Roger Bush Bouchard. He's been more regular in the messages lately. Outrage is here. Claire. Hi, Claire. As always. And I believe there's a few more here that I have missed as we're getting lower. It's pretty nice to see everybody. Honestly, it's been a long time since I've been able to host consistently. So it's nice to be back for a couple games in a row and say hi to everyone. But It's especially nice to be able to watch the Canadians not play terrible hockey because, as you said, Mark, there's some games that you could point to that were terrible. I think the worst game of the season, maybe the worst game under St. Louis, was the last game against Washington. So
Awesome.
compare
But
that.
like, I also like what I really like tonight. I'll be honest, Andrew. Right before Newhook scored, remember when I tell the story of I was annoyed at Crosby during the Olympics because I'm like, man, he's been having like just the most average tournament. Why are they putting him out there? And then he scored the gold medal clinching goal like 6 seconds later. I was in the middle of really kind of going. Remember when they traded for Newhook and everyone's like, oh, best deal ever. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this guy's a middle six guy, and you have those. You can draft those and produce those. And I was about to be very bitter because that's my theme this year is pettiness and bitterness, right? And then he scored. As I was writing, like Newhook has to do something. He's on the top line. He's getting the like opportunities that no one else, like Emil Heineman, should have been there well before him, right? We're talking about a guy that's on pace for 0 assists this year. So I really thought it was important to have a good game, and he looked great. And we saw from Newhook. I feel like this season we're really not seeing his speed, so it was great to get that back into the mix. And he didn't get an assist in the second goal, but speed drove everyone back, and you want to see that from Newhook. Like you got to see that a lot more often. And I was happy to see it.
Yeah, it is nice to see it from Newhook. I know I saw there was a couple people on socials tonight who were saying like Newhook hasn't produced enough to justify being on the first line, and
I don't think he does either. I agree with him.
I get it.
What are you going to do?
I get it, right? Because that's kind of how we've done this song and dance of who should be on the top lines for forever. But with the way that trio is playing right now, and again, I don't think Newhook is a long-term solution there, but
No.
with the way that trio is playing, Newhook is part of what Caulfield and Suzuki have been doing lately, and they've been playing very, very well.
Yeah.
I don't really care if he gets points. Like
it was really bad at the beginning, but the last two games, yeah, and like you got to give him a couple games to, feel the rhythm. It's not, people say it's difficult to play with Caulfield and Suzuki, not necessarily, but you do have to get used to it, right? Like you have to be a little more elite in anticipation, and it takes time. So I think we're seeing some good from Newhook, which is encouraging because it doesn't. I'm already seeing people on social saying Laine has to be on the top line. I know he had a great start, but man, like there's a decent possibility Laine doesn't score for 10 games, and that would be fine. Like I don't see the value of rushing him up to the top line because the expectations go up, and the Habs have a tiny bit of stability in the top six, like a tiny bit, and that's for the first time since Matt and St. Louis took over. So, and even getting back to it, saying Newhook doesn't deserve it, fair enough. Who has deserved to be on the first line? Slafkovsky didn't deserve it when he got that promotion, but he played well with it. Doc was maybe the only guy, but even then was more of an experiment. So, you have to find someone for that top line. As simple as that.
Yeah, and that someone might be already in the organization, but maybe not NHL ready, or maybe they're just playing in Laval for no reason.
Hey, I started winning as soon as Joshua Roy went back down.
Funny how that works. I mean, I don't want to say it's no reason. That's not fair. There's probably some reason.
He hasn't looked
whether
good.
or not it's a hockey reason.
And he didn't look good while he was playing with the Habs either. But
who did
your bottom six? Come on, man. Like it's putting your Maserati in like the go-karts, and you're wondering why it's slamming into walls. It's just not a good use for that player. If the Habs aren't going to use him in the top six, Joshua West stays in the AHL. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, it does make sense that way.
Ooh,
and I think
that's a good suggestion, though. Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, I was going to say that I think the amount of impatience right now just needs to be checked a little bit. I'm seeing it more, honestly, from media, even media folks who are usually patient. They're like, oh, well, if this continues, they're going to have to trade for a 2C. And it's like, what? No, they're not. This is not a year where they need to go for it. They already did their buying in the summer. Laine was the buy to show them we believe you can take the step.
Got paid for that, though. Believe it or not, they got paid to take Laine a little bit, right? Because he got the draft pick too,
But it was still, that was the move, right? And that was the bet. It was them telling them, we'll believe in you. Mm-hmm. Now it's sink or swim time. Now it's do it yourself time. You have runway. Figure it out. Laine, Doc, Slafkovsky, give them the next 25 games.
Yeah.
Figure out if they can form a solid line. Cole and Suzuki, you're going to be fine.
But I'll say this, Andrew, I like that line has not looked good on 5-on-5. But again, it's early, right? Like I don't want to ruin everyone's happiness because it's so rare in Montreal, but at 5-on-5, that line's getting absolutely decimated.
Oh yeah.
So
Although they were good tonight, actually.
Were they? Yeah. Okay. I didn't check tonight. I didn't check the overall stats tonight. But it's got all the pieces, all the tools, and guys with big size and all that. All the size queens in Montreal that wanted taller players should be happy. But I still think Laine needs the rest of this season to find his form, and people got kind of upset when I mentioned that. But it's it's clear that he's not fine-tuned. He needs that time. Next year is when it's important for Laine. Like I see this whole season as a tune-up. And
it's
it
the same for Doc.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though everyone after 3 games, everyone's like, yeah, we'll be patient. And then 3 games later, it's like, you son of a, it's we're going to have to take a step back here and realize that this is the 3rd year in earnest of the rebuild, really 2.5. And this is perfectly normal. It's yeah.
Yeah, Trizak says,
if I can, the media are being impatient now. They're the ones that sold the Habs as a much better team this summer, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was seeing a lot of people. Sorry?
That's the play, right?
Exactly.
That's the way that you...
Team's going to be great, and then they turn around and be like, hey, be patient. Well, listen, the reason they're not being patient was you popped some coal in their boiler there, you know what I mean? So...
Yeah, and like the Canadiens did also shift expectations. They talked about what they wanted to do this season and how it wasn't the same as the last few. And I think that was, it's still the right thing to do. I think it was necessary for the players to have something to hold on to as well. But this is kind of the playbook, right? Because I think people need to realize, I hate talking about like, oh, the media, but like legacy media, this is a problem. Like when you have a media infrastructure that's driven by clicks and profit, you're going to have long-term situations where they create a fake narrative, and then when that doesn't play out, they're like, oh, you should be angry about this. And it's like, some people will get pulled in by that. Some people will react the same way naturally anyway. But for most, they're looking at that and saying, like, the way that the Canadiens fan base has been portrayed this season in media, to me, has been extremely insulting. Because I'm out there talking to people either in socials or like friends or, on different websites, whatever, to Habs fans every single day. And the amount of talk in the legacy media circles about like, oh, Canadiens fans aren't going to be patient in this rebuild. Like this season's going bad. They're not going to be patient. That's not what I'm experiencing. Like there's some impatience. People want the team to be better, but they understand that, as Trizak is saying, what we see on the ice right now is not the final product. He says, Newhook's just keeping a top 6 spot open for Demidov next season. Yeah, and how much changes when Demidov is in this lineup? And also I see Gary Bisson twice says, give Heineman a try on the first line. I'd also try that.
They did, but they didn't really give him an extended. It was more of that one of those, like, you got to score right away or you're off. But
it was a couple shifts, right?
Yeah, Emil Heineman, Gary brings up a really good point, has probably been the most underrated player by a huge margin for the Canadiens, right? So, and he's taking a shot. That's what I really like, is he's taking, I'd want Slavkovsky to watch Heineman and be like, look, every single time the puck comes close, he's shooting. Do what he's doing. Obviously, they're different players, but I think Emil Heineman could be a pretty good fit there because, you get 2 shooting options right away. You have guys that play with speed and pace. But when I talk about speed and pace, it's a little bit different, right? Speed, you can have outright speed, but pace is that, like, the puck's off your stick right away.
And I find one of the things that I really like about Heineman that I think could fit with Slav and Cole, at least short term, is he makes good decisions in transition that are creative. There was a play today where I think it was in the first period, where he kind of received a pass entering the offensive zone. He was skating from, I think, his left wing across the middle towards the right wing. And he could have driven further in, and he saw that he was taking 2 Capitals players with him. And as soon as they shifted their weight and started chasing him, he did a sly little back pass behind him to another Canadiens player who was just entering the zone. And it created like 2 or 3 really high quality looks. Those kinds of plays.
A smart play.
Very, very smart play.
We don't have a stat for that. You know how basketball has a stat for how much space you create? we really need to. It'd be. I guess like Sportlogic would be the only ones that could do it, and they wouldn't because there's no money. But
Can we
I
call it
want
the
to figure out.
Hudson?
Yeah, like there's so much space players create. Like for example, today Owen Beck, who is by the way having he's leading the Rocket in scoring, and we can talk about that later. But as he came into the offensive zone, like he drew everyone with him, dropped it back to Engstrom, who had all the space in the world, and that kind of setup, which is what Hyman has been doing. You're just raising the overall odds that'll go in, right? Because then you have them with all the time in the world in a high danger area. So yeah, I like seeing players that are smart, and Heineman absolutely fits the bill there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are going to talk about the refs at some point tonight. I know Ian said he did not want to talk about the refs, and I get that. We'll go quick.
Me
no,
neither.
they weren't. They were not. They were not okay tonight. They were.
I don't want to talk about. I'm with Ian. I'm gonna type with Ian while you talk about.
No. I mean, I get it because like I also don't want to talk about the refs. I would like to not even think about them ever. They should just be a part of the sport that is there, and I don't talk about. But they were fucking horrendous in the third period. They were like atrocious.
There was no like Anderson ghosted this time because that's the standard. Remember that game where that was like against the Rangers? Now that to me was embarrassing for the league. So like I see that, and I guess everything else kind of flows to the side. Like,
I mean, there was also the Flyers game this year too, with the Xhekaj and Couturier thing. That was egregious. Like this has been every year it gets worse. That's the crazy thing. Every year it gets worse. But let's hold on the refs. I want to talk about them like quickly in the last segment because they're not worth digging in this early.
But real quick, Andrew, if we do talk about refs, I don't want to hear other people that were former refs, with all due respect to them, justify it anymore. Because listen, and there's a friend, and I'm forgetting who is, but they're actually super nice and great people. But the bias is impossible to ignore. You know what I mean? It's like asking a mafioso to hey, did that mafia guy do something wrong? Like, nah, you have to explain it. So you can't go to an ex-referee to judge current referees. It's just
no.
It's a useless. Like I know ESPN does it and TVA does it, but I don't see any value there.
No, I mean I think there's value in terms of like sometimes you get an explanation of like what they're thinking that I find can be interesting, but usually, unfortunately, is not. So I'm going to do a little ad read. Usually we have a QR code up on it, but for some reason it's not working in OBS. I've tried to fix it 2 times as we're talking here. So I'm just going to replace Mark quickly for a second here with a slideshow of now the QR code's going to work. So we've got some new stuff in the store to take a look at. We've got some dad caps for every single team, including the Montreal Canadiens. We've got a mouse pad. And we've got beanies, and I believe we have a new hoodie as well, the one that I'm wearing right now, the Montreal Skater hoodie that you can get in different colors, which is quite nice. And I've really been enjoying the pink beanie, actually. It's got like little purple buttons on the little controller, and it's cute. I like it. The kids like it.
I'm going to have to get one. I'm not going to cut my hair for another year, I figure, so I'm going to get one of those.
And you got to get it. And we've got some like hair accessories as well, and we're going to drop a bunch of new products here heading into the holidays. And for right now, it's not on the screen, but you can find it on all of our socials. We have a 15% off sale on all the winter gear. So the beanies, the toques, the hoodies, 15% off. We would give you an even higher mark off as much as we possibly could, but we keep our margins super low so that we can keep things affordable. And hopefully we'll get to do that even lower in the future. But right now we're still using print on demand, unfortunately, because it's the only thing that we can do as a young growing company. But as we get bigger and the ability to hold stock happens with us, or we can partner with local companies that can print for us, our clothing will get even cheaper and higher quality. So hopefully we get to that point. But for right now, you can use the code GOHOLIDAYS, so GOH, all in caps, and then the end of the word holidays, and you'll get 15% off on all winter gear, warming gear. So check out GameOver.com, or sorry, the GameOverNetwork.com, and check out all of our merch, and have some cool stuff, represent your market, and help support a small company that is paying over 30 young hockey analysts across Canada.
And it's better than anything you'll get in a hockey arena. I promise you. I promise you that.
This is true. It's not made by fanatics. You know, so there's that going for it, which is very nice. All
Okay.
right.
Oh, real quick, hold on. Okay, one of
Yep.
my random idioms, because I come up with bullshit idioms on the fly, didn't work here.
As it goes, yep.
Pop some coil in the boiler. Okay, trains work on steam, and you take coal, and you throw it in there. It burns. The boiler makes steam, pressure, and that's how steam trains work. So pop some coal in the boiler is actually close to making sense there. I'm going to defend that one.
Okay.
I didn't do a nautical or like a warship idiom yet. I'll think about one.
You got to think about it. You got to bring up something.
Logan Thompson was like the USS Enterprise, and he kept taking shots, but he stayed afloat. He stayed afloat, and he anchored his fleet until they could beat the Canadians.
Did you say Enterprise? I think that's Star Trek, not naval.
Andrew, okay.
Is the Enterprise supposed to be
it's
named after
the most common name of a ship that's there? But yes,
really,
there's been 16 iterations on water. Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
There's actually a USS Enterprise right now. I think they just they mothballed it. They have a reserve fleet, but yeah. So the USS Enterprise in the show is actually based on this ship during World War II, like 1v1 Japan the whole time, and like it's the reason the USA won the Pacific War is the USS Enterprise. Yeah, the big E. Yeah.
Did not know that. I'm not a big boat names person.
Ship, because then that way you could call it a spaceship and a water ship, right? Yeah. There's I can actually get even more nerdy. Did you ever watch the show Enterprise? What's the guy that used to do quantum leaps? What's his name?
I have no idea.
Actor. Anyways, they did a whole other Enterprise show, and it was actually very, very good. And in the intro, they show like how they got up to that point, and they show like just how humans come up with flight, and then the ships on the water, and it's actually a really good show. I'm gonna look up Quantum Leap guy because for sure you know who he is.
I know I know the face. I know Quantum Leap, but I don't know.
Why can't I find Scott Bakula? Freaking Scott Bakula!
I was gonna say Scott Bakula, but I thought that was wrong.
And the thing is, that show actually they started off just calling it Enterprise, and it bombed. It ruined the entire franchise. So maybe I shouldn't be saying it's a good show, but I enjoyed it.
All right, let's move on from ship names and Scott Bakula. I wanted to talk a little bit about Nick Suzuki because it was his 400th game tonight, 400th straight game, not including playoffs. He's over a point a game, another apple tonight. I think we all would agree that he didn't start well this season. And his starting poorly is now over point per game production, which I think kind of indicates that he's taken the step that you can see with star players where they still produce really well, even when they're kind of playing like garbage. Yeah. And that's really encouraging, which is, I said it on Bluesky a couple days ago. Like, I understand that might sound backwards that I'm encouraged by his poor start, but now that he's starting to get his legs under him, and it's the same kind of stories we see every year with Suzuki, where October and maybe the first half of November are not great, and then the whole season goes on, he gets better and better and better. Where are you at with Nick Suzuki right now after 400 games in a Montreal Canadiens jersey in the regular season? Habs captain, over a point per game, defensive numbers maybe not where they should be right now, but looking in the right direction.
I will, and I absolutely understand why you're saying he had a bad start. He didn't. He went 2 games without a point.
No, on the defensive side.
Sure, absolutely. But then after those 2 games without a point, he went on like a 10-point game streak, a scoring streak. So in the first 12 games of the season, 2 of them he didn't have points. And I understand because Andrew, you're actually looking at it a little more broader, more analytical in the sense that, the scoring was there, but defensively he wasn't that good. I feel like the general consensus was that he just wasn't producing when he actually was. So I think after 400 games, Montreal Canadiens fans in general have to take a step back and say, Nick Suzuki's a pretty damn good player. He's been the best player for the last 4 years. And the next time that he slightly stumbles, because he didn't trip or anything, he didn't fall down, he just had a little hiccup, maybe everyone will take a deep breath and be like, hey, he's allowed not, because as you mentioned, not great, still over a point per game. So next time, deep breaths, I think, from everyone. Nick Suzuki is a guy that if you remove him from this team, and I know it might be funny to say, they're not a particularly good team, but they'd be like Washington Capitals, Ottawa Senators expansion quality, if I'm being perfectly honest. He's the glue that in the neutral zone, without Nick Suzuki, the Habs would never get to the offensive zone, right? Like we saw Safkovsky take steps in that regard, but it's pulled back now that they're asking him to play simpler, and there's really no one else that tries to play like he does. So I feel like a higher level of respect for Nick Suzuki is warranted in this area, because he's not even reached the point where, and we all love Saku Koivu for good reason, but I feel like people actually still kind of rate him below. And I think Nick Suzuki's. I originally compared him to Koivu. I thought that would be a really good comparison. He's gone past that point here, whether we like it or not. And I'm not talking about the cancer here, but like the knee injuries and the multiple injuries for Koivu, longevity is endurance is a skill that you have to have. It's the reason Gretzky got so many points. So Suzuki is unbreakable. He constantly produces, and he's the type of leader.
Don't say he's unbreakable out loud.
Oh yeah. Oh, why is that a line or something?
Well, I mean, just don't tempt
Tempting fate.
Yeah. Like that, because as you said, like they would be really bad without him.
He didn't game in junior either. That's what his mom was telling me. Which I went back and I looked. And I'm not sure about that, but she's like, yeah, I don't think he missed a game since like midget.
Yeah, I mean, he is the only NHLer I can think of that didn't catch COVID. He's the only Montreal Canadian.
Right?
Most of them caught it twice. Oh God, Kay says you're saying he's indestructible right before the Trouba game.
Yeah, but then Trouba would have. And let's be honest, that's not going to happen. Hey, you know what? I caught COVID like 3 times while I worked for the Montreal Canadiens, and Nick Suzuki didn't even catch it. Right? So, yeah, man. He's you know what's funny? When he was a lot younger, he was like constantly in the hospital because he'd have. You ever get an ear infection? It's so painful, like just
brutal.
It's like teeth, right? There's a few things that really hurt, and he had stuff when he was a kid, and in and out of the hospital all the time. Now he's just. It's also because he's smart, Andrew, and you know when he gets hit, he gets up so quickly because he's. We talk about Sidney Crosby, but he's got oak trees too, Suzuki down there. Like his core. He's 220 pounds or something, or 225 at 5'11". That's insane, and there's not a lot of fat on him. So I would just think that given how much he's given to this team and just through really tough seasons, I feel like Nick Suzuki deserves a higher level from the media and the fans. And I'm going to mention the media here because I still don't think many of them are convinced he's a good player, even though we have the proof every single night.
Yeah, I actually liked what you said. You were talking about comparing him to Koivu because that's something that I did early in his career a lot. It was the way that he attacked space reminded me a lot of Koivu. The way, not his skating because Koivu was a much faster skater, but his
I don't know, he was Koivu.
Like his gliding
Koivu's offense at first was way better than Suzuki's. Like I'm looking at it post knee injury offense now, and Suzuki's better, but Koivu had the edge at the beginning. He was a really
I would
player.
agree. Yeah, but it's like their creativity in spaces I find is very similar. But I agree that Suzuki has surpassed what Koivu became after the injury, and I think there's still things to unlock with him because he seems to improve all the time. He's so dedicated to it. Like he's such a hard worker, and I think you're right that he doesn't get the respect that he's earned. And, we talked about it with Kay recently when he was left off that Four Nations face-off team. And I don't think Suzuki is the biggest snub. We talked about Logan Thompson earlier. That's probably a bigger snub. Also, I think Noah Dobson is an absolutely atrocious, ridiculous snub considering some of the defensemen they took on that team. It makes absolutely no sense.
I honestly didn't look at Canada's lineup, but
it's not great.
Taves, did they at least invite like Taves or Avalanche? No.
Yeah, they got Devon Taves at least. Yeah, and Cale McCarr.
Andrew, one of the biggest issues, and I've brought this up a lot. And this is why, listen, I like those cards that athletic guy. What's his name? Dom produces, and also with Jay Fresh. But what that does, and it's not their fault whatsoever, but it jumps into the idea that we analyze essentially every player once during a year, and that tag sticks. We're so slow to actually, in soccer, from week to week, you could be talking about this guy was amazing this week. Next week, he had a worse game. So it's, more flowing. But we in hockey, we're so slow on reacting to the development and the evolution of certain players. And Koivu was part of that. Suzuki's part of that, right? He's definitely developed every aspect of his game. His defense is not as great as it once was, but I think he's focusing on the offense. And we're just not great at updating our perception or versus the reality of the players. And I feel like in hockey, Team Canada has done this so much. I mean, the USA, let's be honest, the fact that they snubbed their best goal scorers, like that should be a fireable offense. You know what I mean? And Tage Thompson either too. Like we're talking about Trocheck and Kreider. Like, yeah, we're talking about what, 20 points combined? Koivu has more goals than they have points. You know what I mean?
Caulfield. You're stuck on Koivu.
I'm really stuck on Koivu. Yeah, again, I told you, no sleep last night. So that's why I'm a little irritated today. Anyways, so I think hockey in general, we just do a really poor job of updating ourselves to how certain players are performing. And like, again, last year, remember Slavkovsky? Mm-hmm. So everyone got the stats for the first month, and then everyone else in the NHL, as we watched Slavkovsky get better, then they got the stats a month later, and like, well, this guy's shit. And we're like, well, no, he's been playing better. Like, no, this piece of paper says he's shit. That's just a symptom of us being really slow on our analysis for hockey, and we really are not great at changing it or admitting when we make mistakes, because that's what we do, right? That is analysis. So I feel we can be better everywhere, and not bringing a guy like Caulfield or Dobson. That's a symptom of GM still being so slow on the trigger.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those situations where I always feel a little bit bad framing it this way, because it feels like I'm trying to like pat my own back. But Mark, when you and I were running Habs Eyes in the Prize back in like 2013, 2014,
before 4, yeah,
everything that we were saying, we would see in legacy media 4, 5, 6 months later.
That still happens. So
it still happens today. And this is why stuff like this is so important, right? You will get better, higher quality, more up-to-date analysis with independent hockey media than you ever will from legacy media, because they just don't pay that much attention, especially national media.
Real quick, and I know I just went on a rant, but Brett Kulak, 3 years into his tenure, which he's been putting up great numbers by Petrie, and you get legacy media was like, well, you know what? Kulak's actually been much better this week. It's like, motherfucker, like he's been good for 2 years. What are you doing here? Like, as if you're the one that has the voice here that's telling people. Or even Lehkonen. Even to the day when he clinched a Stanley Cup goal, there's still people in Montreal like, nah, he wouldn't have been good here.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like, that's the other part too, is just we're really, I admit I'm wrong all the time, because it happens a lot.
That's part of life.
But we'd be much less intellectually dishonest if we admitted how often we make mistakes and just laugh at it. You know what? Move on and laugh at it. But
100%.
I mean, we're kind of getting away from the game tonight. Now, I take over.
Well, I mean, we are, but we're also talking about something that's very relevant, right? We're talking about Nick Suzuki, and Kay asked in the chat,
the perception
our thoughts
is old. It's 3 year old, like they're still looking at him like he's 21.
Kay asked in the chat, like, what our thoughts are about, like, Nick wasn't even one of the 10 or 12 players who got a courtesy call from Team Canada about being considered. And Darren Dreger recently was on TSN 690 and said that the Team Canada brass were upset that Nick Suzuki didn't go to the World Championships for them. And to that, stupid. I say, like, trigger warning for anybody who's a parent who's got kids, like, plug their ears. Go fuck yourself, Team Canada. Like, Hockey Canada, we'd rather he came to the World Championships after a season of being the only guy who ever stays healthy, multiple years in a row for the Montreal Canadiens, gutting through loss after loss after loss, always being there, the number one call for the coach, whether it's power play, PK, even strength, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, shootout, you fucking name it. This guy does every single job. He never gets hurt, never makes excuses, never complains about
He leads by
anything.
example.
Yeah, always. He's always the guy who's in the room answering questions. Like, you compare how often Nick Suzuki is out there answering media questions to recent Habs captains, it's completely different.
Freddie was like 50-50 if he'd even bother.
I mean, even Weber a lot of times was not there, especially on the road.
This is. I feel like I'm looking really bitter right now, so I'm going to dive right into it and go full bitter. But the only captain that Ken Dryden mentioned, like, he reminds me of Le Gros Bill, which, like, that's the ultimate compliment. It wasn't Weber, and it wasn't Pacioretty, and it wasn't Koivu. It was Suzuki. And when you have a guy like Ken Dryden who doesn't, he doesn't throw words around lightly. Like, he obviously is an intellectual, and he has so much life experience and success. For him to say that meant a lot. To just to bring Monsieur Jean Béliveau's name into the discussion was Ken Dryden saying, look, this is a guy that leads because he commands respect. He doesn't demand respect. And let's be honest, some of the other captains, they demanded respect. That doesn't work. You have to command it.
Yeah, 100%. And going back to that Hockey Canada, we really wanted him to go to the World Junior Championship. Like, we wish he wouldn't have said no to that.
Goals versus Great Britain? Who gives a shit? Like,
well,
what's the...
Like, yes, okay. You wished he would have done this thing for you and shown more dedication. I wish you didn't have multiple slush funds to get, away from multiple sexual harassments and sexual exploitations and sexual assaults. Your players that you think are these amazing people who could never do any wrong and can't face any consequence. Like, I don't want to hear Hockey Canada say anything until it cleans up its oown bullshit. And we know that they haven't done that.
That actually goes into our gymnastics and so many sports in Canada and soccer and all that. But anyways, even to go further than that, obviously, Andrew, that's just like, that was so disheartening for a sport. And I think we kind of all really wanted to move on because it was embarrassing, but that was such a black mark on our identity, our cultural identity in Canada on the worldwide stage too, right? So, but Team Canada figured Rob Zamner would be a better player than Mark Messier in his prime. Okay, Team Canada didn't invite Sidney Crosby because they thought he was too young. Like, you know what I mean? And I believe was that 2006 they didn't medal whatsoever, right? Like, the ones who gave Crosby a +1 the next year to bring his buddy, So Team Canada has a long history of idiotic decisions made by dinosaurs, and it goes, as you mentioned, well beyond their team selection. They are coasting on talent, and they feel untouchable, and they have been. So hopefully there's a nice little revolution there. And it really has to go beyond hockey in the sport. There's so many aspects of our sport in Canada that's embarrassing right now.
And it probably goes beyond sport, really. I mean, I think this is one of the things that's like kind of exciting to me about the advent of Bluesky and kind of like the death knell of Twitter, because I know you're still on Twitter.
It's hardly any I go on once or twice a day.
You got to get on Bluesky, man.
I'm with social media, Andrew. I don't know if I'll make it to Bluesky. I don't have the energy. I just,
You'll change your mind as soon as you get there and you see like this starter pack thing that they have going on where they like really boost you right off the bat, like the community does. And man, it feels like 2014 Twitter with better tools. Like it's really solid, and it actually creates like good conversations. I've had more good conversations on Bluesky in the last couple of weeks than I've had on Twitter in the last like 2 or 3 years outside of DMs.
I like that. And even people are constantly saying, when are you coming over? But yeah, I don't know. Either soon or never. That's my answer right there.
All right, let's pimp some of our stuff here that we have going on. I probably shouldn't say that, but let's talk about our Patreon, because we're gonna rework it this week and add some more perks. So actually, if you have things that you would like to see us do, now is a great time to join our Discord. There's a link in the description of this video, actually on the YouTube page itself, or you can go to thegameovernetwork.com, jump into either the Montreal public room or the general room, whatever. Give us some suggestions on things that you'd like to be part of our Patreon. One of the things that we're kicking around with the other folks in Game Over is doing some gaming streams where folks can join us in like a Discord live room and just have a chat. One of the things that I'm kicking around for our patrons is kind of doing like a work along stream when I'm at my computer during the day, and just have that open for people to come hang out on the Discord and chill with me, chat some hockey while I'm tinkering, doing mostly financial and banking stuff right now, unfortunately.
That's fever.
Just really entertaining stuff. But we'll listen to some music, hang out, chat. There's nothing wrong with that. That's always fun, right? It'll get you through the day, get me through the day too, and help motivate me to do some work and make sure this company works properly.
I'm just super lazy. It hardly works.
Yeah, I'm always doing distracting stuff. But yeah, and also, hey, check out our Patreon. See our tiers there this coming week. Pay attention to it. I think it's patreon.com/gameovernetwork. I think that's what the link is, but it's in the description of this video or the podcast if you're listening on the podcast, and it's on our website as well. And also it's on this YouTube page. If you just click on the YouTube page, it's in our links. So you can find that if you have any inquisitive nature whatsoever and help us pay some employees here and get some cool perks. But let's talk about the refs quickly, Mark, because I don't understand what the point of calling the Anderson call and the Hudson call were. Because I get it that if you want to twist it in the favor of the refs making those calls, you can say, sure, by the letter of the law, maybe you could get away with those. But in a game situation, neither of those are getting called 99% of the time. And in the situation that was happening in the game, where it was like the balance of the game was completely open, atrocious. And I don't think anything pisses me off more than then calling the penalty with less than 2 minutes left at the end of the game when it's definitely over. And, let's just balance the sheet a little bit. Like that kind of stuff is not even one team or the other. It happens to every team all the time. And it's like, oh, it balances out. Let's just not balance it out and just stop doing stupid shit instead. Like,
Never gonna
can we
happen.
just do that? Can we just like call a good game?
And you make a lot of good points. And by the way, is my mic still, how's it sounding? Is it still a little cackly right now?
It's way better now.
Okay, good. It's never going to happen. And I know this is asking a lot. We just got to accept that the human factor involved with referees is that they're going to screw it up. And they're going to screw up. The key part, I think, Andrew, you mentioned there, is that it's general incompetence, right? It's not like targeted incompetence unless Gallagher is there. So I feel like that's just a human element of sports, and you got to roll with the punches. And yes, it's frustrating, but it's never going to change. It's never going to change whatsoever.
I don't like to blame this kind of stuff on the human element of sports because this is a choice. A conscious
well, not necessarily
choice.
because Andrew, have you ever looked what I think one of what they really do well in the KHL is they have the ref view. Okay, we have a different view, right? We're looking at a bird's eye view. Mm-hmm. They do not see the exact same thing as us. It's genuinely difficult to get every call right in hockey.
Yes.
And I will
not saying they should
always support them.
That shouldn't be expected to get every call right.
Yeah.
But
so there's gonna be mistakes. That's again, it's the human element, right?
But we've talked about ways to address that before, right?
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
Then I know they're not because they don't care.
Yeah, go like rugby did, what rugby's done it for 20 years now. You know, it's brilliant. But that's them and the NHL admitting that they're not the best referees in the world, right? And they're not going to do that. So I absolutely, everyone agrees that it's sucked and it should change, but it's not. It's just not. And I feel we just kind of have to.
I wish we could
go with it.
I wish we could also just move off that idea of this means that. Like if we say that giving referees more support off ice to give them better views of things or more understanding of what happened maybe they missed is admitting that the referees aren't good enough, or like maybe just the game is too fast and
it's
we should support
fast, especially compared to where it started, right? Like, you know, when we're playing on the pond, you can notice anything, but when you're actually on the ice and the guys are moving that fast, it's very, very difficult to get a good look. The referees haven't evolved whatsoever since the start of hockey, essentially, but players have. So you're right, Andrew. It should be changed. We should have a review. It should be better, but it won't be.
No, and I don't even know about like reviewing. I think things need to be more live, like live interaction between refs, somebody in their ear that can tell them like, hey.
Well, no, sorry. What they do is in rugby, they review it live.
Yeah.
And like the mic is open to fans hear their conversation too. And that's what I love. Yeah. I love that.
That's
I love
super
that.
Interesting.
Because
I would like that, but the NHL doesn't want transparency. It never wants transparency. This is kind of like, this is why I don't want to put it on human error, because that's always the thing that like the old heads will say. Like I'm not trying to be insulting, but like you talk to Stu Cowan, who I really like Stu Cowan. He's a great guy. But Stu Cowan is one of those guys like, oh, we shouldn't have any reviews of anything. Just human error is fine. Go for it. It's sports. Live with it. And I don't agree with that, but I do think we have too many reviews.
Yeah.
But it's not human error that the NHL game is officiated poorly. It's the design of the game to be officiated poorly. Like they are going for the result that they want, right? They want players to get frustrated, to get over the line, create intensity. They want situations to be frustrating. I really do think the way that they do it is an old school mentality of we're going to do it this way, tough. You're going to get screwed over sometimes. Figure it out. You get to be mad, whatever. They don't actually want to figure out the best way to do things. And this is why I'm so excited about the PWHL, because they're not afraid to change things. They're going to try things out as their league goes on.
And they
change
can,
rules.
right? There's not billions of dollars at play either, right? That's the
Exactly.
other.
Not billions of dollars at play.
Here. There's it's a two different animals, right? And I love
Sure.
the PWHL. I love them.
But I mean, the billions of dollars at play, I don't think that's really the fear of change. I think it's the mountain of history. They don't want to feel like they're ripping things apart, but hockey changes all the time. It's changed a lot more than most other sports. It's not baseball.
Oh man, at one point you couldn't even forward pass it, right?
Exactly.
Yes, obviously the evolution, but throughout all those evolutions, all they did was add one more ref and one more linesman. They did nothing in their application, nothing in their tools. Maybe the reviews on the iPads are really, there's been very little evolution on the referee side, right? So
Yeah.
to me, Andrew, the biggest issue here, it's not any of that. It's that the rule book is so, I was about to swear again, but I think I've done it like 7 times tonight, is so ambiguous. Like every single, I remember at one point, and again, he's a good guy. Who's the name of the ESPN ref that justifies every call there? What's his name? We had him on the show. I like him. Very nice guy.
Dave Jackson. He's a great guy.
Oh my God.
Also think that he disrespects people by the way that he talks about things sometimes.
But yes, he could be president of the referees union, like that. Yeah. But every time he justifies it to me, like he does actually a pretty darn good job. And at the end, I'm like, I look at the rules, I'm like, well, I really feel like that was BS what you said, but it kind of fits in with this. It's so vague, Andrew, that for the referees to do an actual proper job, you'd have to do a full audit, because what we have now is just an accumulation of year after year modification. Eventually, big pile of bureaucracy, right? Like just that's impossible to figure out, interpret, and apply correctly. So,
but that's what I mean. It's on purpose.
You have to start by ripping the rule book completely apart. Start over.
But yeah, that's the point, right? It is vague on purpose so that when crazy situations happen, they can sit down and the hockey brain trust in Toronto, who is trusted to make these tight calls, has enough wiggle room to do whatever the hell they want.
But let's clear this up. It doesn't matter that they're in Toronto, right? Like,
no. I'm just saying that because that's where it is. It has nothing to do with the Maple Leafs.
Good. Okay, I thought you were doing the classic, like, no. Doing it for Toronto's probably been one of the teams that gets like screwed the most often with suspensions and stuff. So yeah. I agree with you, Andrew. I don't think they have the tools or the system set up right now for them to be better.
No, the refs don't. I agree. The refs do not. I don't even blame the refs anymore. Are they the focal point? Yes, but this is the league issue.
This is where we're bringing back that human factor, right? Like it's so big that you're putting it all on the referee's shoulders, saying interpret it. And when people start to interpret rules, the worst part, Andrew, is it's like, the CBA is lawyer talk, obviously. And you ask a lawyer, why is this so complicated? And they're like, well, we don't want just anyone to be able to read this, right? It's for a good reason. The referee book does not have to be like a collective bargaining agreement or a memorandum of understanding. You know what I mean? Like it's purposely, well, not purposely bad, but it's just a terrible amalgamation of just these quasi rules with changes every year. And they go, and during the summer, you know what they talk about? Should we give the coaches another review? You know what I mean? It's nothing to like make it so.
Well, that's what I meant when we're talking about like the billions of dollars on the line. Yeah. It is like, if they were super concerned about that, would they be another like offside reviews and stuff? Like, I can't imagine that helps the bottom line.
Well, no, but that would again, and that's another. I feel like we jumped to some things that there was Matt Shane was offside once, and the NHL has been worse for it for 10. And here's the other part. The whole. I think it's insulting to the linesmen when we pull up this video, the Zapruder quality video, and we pull out our goddamn micrometer to see like, oh, he was a quarter of a 5/8 inch off. The goal's no longer good. That's so insulting. Like that should have been a goal. It goes against the whole spirit of the sport. It's the fastest game on earth, but you're stopping it to check to make sure everything went out like absolutely perfectly. Screw that, man. Move on. Like it was a goal. Why are you trying to hurt your own product? It's crazy to me.
My opinion on that has been the same the entire way. Is I'm not even convinced that offsides are necessary. But if you're going to keep offsides in the game, I would change it so that instead of the puck having to cross the blue line, you consider the blue line neutral space. As soon as anything touches it, you're good. You're golden. And I really don't care if the puck carrier doesn't cross the line first or the puck doesn't cross the line first.
Why?
As long as the entire person's other body isn't in there and giving a
You should be able
specific
to skate it in
advantage.
backwards if you want to. You know what I mean?
100% you should.
Like, but then again, Andrew, I would, remember Andrew Shaw when he did that, like, what was it, the head goal? That to me would have been a goal. We've gotten to the point that, and listen, we had this discussion about regulations, for example, out of hockey. Like Canada is a country where we put a lot of regulations in place, and oftentimes it's good, but oftentimes it's very restrictive, right? It hurts business. Well, I feel like all these little changes and they're just genuinely hurting themselves going forward. And we're seeing it in the entirety of the sport. The NHL went from being fourth because there was no number 5. They're going to end up being sixth. They're not even considered a top 4 sports league right now in North America. And a lot of that is because the owners are happy with making a little bit of money every year, right? They're happy with that. It's like they're very nice RRSP. So,
well, it's also because
you have owners that are like, stop giving a shit about just making that extra 2% or everything being stable, and they want to try something different. You're not gonna. And you're right. This brings us back to the PWHL. They will try things, and their rule changes, Andrew, have been almost all great.
Yeah, and I hope that influences the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it will right away, but if the PWHL picks up steam, like I think it could, and becomes like it would take forever for it to become an actual legit like primetime challenger for the NHL.
Yeah.
But if it can make enough noise that people are talking about, like, hey, you know what? The product is actually better. And if we can get to the point where, hey, the women actually have sticks that are made for them instead of having to use boys' youth sticks or men's sticks that are cut off and therefore have ridiculously absurdly high flex.
But they get more than 2 a year or something, because if they break 2, then they got to buy their own. Yeah,
exactly. If they could actually get some infrastructural support, like a professional league, like they are now, things are going to change, and I'm really excited for it because I think the NHL needs a kick in the teeth. You see all like the team evaluations is the big thing that the NHL always talks about, right? And like the Forbes team evaluations and look at how much more teams are worth now. Look how much more expansion costs now. How much of that is just like property value inflation for a lot of these teams, like they're not actually keeping pace even close with the other sports leagues, as you said. And these owners, they're getting their little bit of money from running the teams for sure, but they're in it to sell, most of them. There are very few owners who are like
his 1% of the Habs ended up buying the Senators. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So, but just remember this: every time we shit on Gary Bettman, he's the face of the owners, and that like we have to be very clear about this. The Jeff Molsons of the world, the Michael Andlers of the world, they're the ones that are calling the shots here. Yes, it's Gary Bettman, but he's but a tool.
He's just a lawyer.
Yeah. He's actually just a tool for them to collect, and he takes all the garbage. But every time teams boo him, he justifies his $6 million salary, or whatever it is. It must be higher. Hey, we got a mention of. By the way, they're loving the chat of the Savannah Bananas.
Oh,
do you know who?
Bananas. Yeah, the baseball team.
Amazing, and they just have fun, and they're saying that the I'm surprised that MLB is following suit, but just like rule changes shouldn't be the end of the world. I remember when they're doing jailbreak now, in the PWHL, and then they did it in the NCAA the next year. So you know what else that the NCAA copied from the PWHL is starting. If you're on the ice, you get a penalty. You stay on the ice, and like to me, that's amazing. That's absolutely fantastic. Maybe this is getting aggressive. You have to stay on the ice for the full, power play.
Like that.
I want to see goals. I want to see Philippe score 75 goals per game. You know what I mean? Like people would hate me because I would disrespect the fabric of the game, but it would be more entertaining. And the NHL only makes rule changes when the dinosaurs all kind of fun. They show up in Florida for 2 days, they golf, and then they'll come up and they'll say, okay, we're making this minor change and there's 20 other considerations. We're not even going to talk about it. That's why the NHL doesn't evolve. And again, Andrew, this goes back. They never evolved how they trained the referees. Remember Jackson was saying, every year we investigate ourselves and we do great. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. So like, it's like a company investigating themselves and saying we did everything perfectly. So,
it's like cops. We follow all the rules. All the time.
Exactly. And when we checked ourselves out, we were great. But all I'm saying here is that as much as I understand that referees are frustrating, and sometimes, like this year, that game against the Rangers, I stay calm when referees screw up. That was like that was to the point that I don't know if I should even say this, but if it was in another sport, in another league, another era, I would have been looking around to see who's this guy calling after the game. You know what I mean? Like it felt corrupt. And that doesn't happen that often. And until the NHL really clears all this up, adds some support for them, we got to live with it. And the referees are not going to get better. It's as simple as that.
Well, they have no tools to do that. And that's something that I've been trying to focus on in like all conversations that I'm having with everybody when I'm criticizing something is like the thing that you're criticizing or like the people that you're criticizing, do they have the tools to improve? Right? It's the same thing with like the people who it makes no sense that they vote for like Trump, right? Like, do they have the tools to understand what is misinformation on the internet?
Is it systematic or exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Do they have the time in their day-to-day lives to actually go out and get those tools? Probably not, because none of us do. We're all working way too much.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with these refs. Their jobs are insane. How tough it is for a player to go out there and play 20 minutes. They're out there the whole time, just skating
like 12
lanes.
kilometers or something. Yeah. It's now they get paid very, very well, but and they'll take some shot. Like it is still pretty rough. Linesmen are the ones that have to jump in and get those punches. And once in a while, Jack Eye will maybe catch you with one. What's funny the other night? When Jack Eye and what was the name of the other? There's Jack Eye and a Jackass. Who's the other guy?
I don't remember.
Wait, the other guy punched the ref. And then Jack Eye got pissed, so he jumped in and he kind of grazed the left. And then everyone's like, look what Jack Eye did. Look what Jack Eye did. It's like, okay, what's going on here? But anyways, all this to say, Andrew, I think one way to come out of this is that the PWHL is doing it very right. And if anyone gets a chance, the Montreal Victoires are still great. You got the Lower Stacy's of the world and the Marie-Philippe Vains. But then you have, Kennedy's and Grant Mentis. She scored last night. They're putting together a great product and they're doing it well and it's fun. Like PWHL hockey is legitimately fun. It's one of the reasons I kind of fell in love with it in the first place was that it's a fun vibe instead of like an aggressive. In the PWHL, when they score, people are happy. In the NHL, they're like, like they want to fight or something. So it almost feels more pure. Not to sound too much like a douche there, but it sounds like a little more pure in terms of the hockey enjoyment.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we take some questions from the chat? Let's shift to overtime.
Yeah, all right, they're having fun in here because we've been going at it about the rest. Well, we've been having a fun discussion, but they're having fun in the chat as well. We have I have a guy, Nicholas Lund. Okay, were you in my improvisation team at Samuel Genet in the mid-90s by any chance? Because there was a guy called Nicholas Lund on my team. There can't be two Nicholas Lunds in the world, can there?
I don't. He's upset that we were talking about Bluesky versus Twitter. Virtue signaling. All right, man. Like, what is virtue? No. Let's ask a question. If you're here, what is virtue signaling to you? I just want to know what that means to you. We're not going to rush it, but Tony says the packed PWHL games at the Bell Center were a blast vibes-wise. Yeah, and the vibes are crazy.
They've been great too. Yeah, like they're selling out 12,000 people, Andrew. That's insane. When I was first going to the games, they were at the old 1967, 1976 Olympic sites. And we get 1,500 was a lot from a Montreal game. That was when Chantal Navarre was about to retire, So growth has been just spectacular, and we're finally giving them a chance. We missed the best years of Marie-Philippe Poulin. You know what I mean? We missed out on so much good hockey that I'm overdosing now on seeing all these fantastic elite athletes. That's what they are. Elite athletes getting their opportunity to shine. It's not like they were just giving it to them. They worked hard for this. So it's absolutely fantastic to know that the PWHL is they had 13, 14, 15,000 people streaming a live game. That's fantastic, man. That's a game that is also on RDS, right? So
that's honestly incredible. It's honestly incredible, and I absolutely love it for them. I hope that we get to do some stuff with them because I know there's going to be an opportunity and a huge amount of growth potential there. And I would like to be a part of helping boost the women's game and
doing it right. Here's the other part is that so many people in the media, I feel like we're hitting the theme tonight. I talked about women's hockey. You did it once every 4 years, man. That's nothing. That's pseudo support. And it's actually worse than just not talking about it because you're trying to, get credit for something you're not doing. So, it's we could do a lot better job caring instead of pretending to care online just so some people think that we're, were positive. And I really feel like in Montreal, especially, we have the Centre 2102. We have the best players in the country. There should be a lot more people talking about it. Just talking about it is a big step. You know what I mean?
Nicholas is still here. Says not the same person from Sweden.
So he wasn't in my improv class in Ottawa, Ontario in the mid-90s? Damn it. Damn it. I used to be El Scorcho was my improv name because Weezer.
Yeah, Ian Boisvert says Nashville just lost 7 straight. Who are we picking off that corpse? He recommends Alexandre Carrier.
No.
Yeah, and also says the Savard end times are upon us. What are your thoughts on Savard,
tonight.
Mark?
That was bad tonight. He
was bad. But you know what? Last season, he was possibly even worse than this to start. And then he got hurt and was out for a bit and was pretty okay the rest of the year. So
what are you going to do with a 4th round pick, Andrew? What do you like?
It's not worth it. Like,
here's the other part. Okay, so listen, I know a lot of people thought that was being harsh towards Logan Mailloux, but the reality was I was one of the few people watching him in London every night, right? And they were like, "Oh, he's going to play in the NHL." You know, even Francis Bouillon said it. Then he pulled back when he finally went and watched some of his games. He's not ready to be in the NHL, like not even remotely close. Neither is David Reinbacher. And Trump could jump on his, but he's doing fine. Let him brew. What are you going to do without David Savard there? Like, is Goulet automatically is back on the right, so you make Caden Goulet worse. You put a lot of stress on Hudson because he's got to play more minutes now, no matter what. More stress on Matheson because he's got to play more minutes now, no matter what, because Goulet is shifting over. I don't think
just play Barron more.
Yeah, you're right. You could. I get the sense that Martin Saint-Louis
doesn't want to do that.
Does not trust Justin Barron. Well, now his offense is great, man. So like, there's that side of it. But I get the sense that Barron. Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that's a more complicated. I think that's a more complicated one than like Marty doesn't want to play Barron over Savard.
Well, he's had no consistency either, right?
No, he hasn't.
Yeah,
but it's like it's the vet thing. The respect in the room thing for Savard because he 100% has that. The dude he's one of the most likable players on the Montreal Canadiens in a very long time.
You know what's really funny? Because I've seen him in the locker room. He acts exactly like PK Subban.
Yeah, he's a big goofball. He's like a big goofy dad.
What did you just say there 2 seconds ago? He's the most likable player?
He's one of the most likable players for the Canadiens.
It's funny because Subban did the exact same thing and he was called a detestable player. But anyhow, we can just move on.
Well, not by us though, Mark.
I just don't see the value here, Andrew. And the other side is it could David Saval's not that bad, right? He's got his kids here. I know that he's a hockey player and that changes things, right? That higher level of pay means they have to make sacrifices, which is totally fair. I just don't see the value of a guy who's, first of all, he speaks French, and I know a lot of people don't give a damn. I do, and I always will. It's important. Second of all, he wants to be here. Third of all, this is the youngest team in the NHL. We have to have some people that'll be there to either break the tension or kind of get their, pick your head up, stand tall. And that's what David Savard does. And I don't think the 92nd or 104th overall pick in 2 years is worth it to get rid of that, So, and it's funny, Andrew, because 3 years ago we would have been, not 3 years ago, like 10 years ago, we would have been riding the get Savard out of here train. But the Habs aren't making the playoffs. It's as simple as that. So I just don't see the value of stressing out these young defensemen that are already at a point they're almost about to break. They don't need more on their shoulders. They really don't.
Yeah, I would load manage Savard though, which I know NHLers hate doing, and it'd be a tough conversation with him as well. But you're getting old. You block so many damn shots. Yeah, you're built like a bear. But let's keep you healthy and work in Barron a little bit more. I think there's ways to handle this that aren't too panicky.
I mean, the other night did you see him hustle like a mofo out of the there's a penalty.
No,
Roman Yossi was dead tired. He had been on the ice for like 3 minutes and he got this close to catching up to Savard, but Savard got on his horse, man. That was beautiful.
David Savard gets to go home to his kids and say that he beat Roman Yossi foot race and got a breakaway. If he would have scored that goal though, Mark, honestly,
10-year extension.
I think I would have stood up and cheered, and I don't really do that kind of stuff anymore. Like, it would just be such an amazing moment for a guy who really deserves that kind of thing. So,
but and what you mentioned about the locker room earlier, how he's a good guy. Have you noticed how since Laine has been there, there's almost been like people are almost stalling, standing a few inches taller. They almost have like that sense of like, okay, we deserve to be here. Almost like it's not an aura, but it's just having a guy there that will once in a while, pull your head out of the river type of thing there, right? So you don't drown. And I really think Saval's got some value there. And at one point, a guy like that becomes the intermediate between management and the team as well. There's those type of discussions, and you'll talk to the Suzuki's and obviously the Savals and the Gallagher. So I just don't see the value of a fourth round pick.
No, I don't. It's the same thing as last year, right? If somebody's willing to part with something significant, then you move.
But do you think that's possible? Because let's be honest, who would
Not
give
right
a first?
now?
Yeah, no.
But you know what is suddenly possible? Not that I'm saying it should happen, because I'm really enjoying the line. An Anderson trade. I think if this continues until February,
go. Yeah. Any deal that doesn't have between parentheses Canadians retain, done. Hey, vas-y.
But I again, just like I said last show with Kay, I give so much credit to Josh Anderson for what's going on right now. Like, yeah, the coaching staff has worked with him, but the amount of work that he's had to put in himself and the stick-to-itiveness to get to this point.
Mm-hmm. It's very humbling too.
Considering the lows, it's the mental toughness is incredible. And I've been a harsh criticizer of Josh Anderson for a very long time. But I can't.
You know what though, Andrew? There's part of me that wants to be like, yeah, he gets $6 million a year. He damn well should skate hard every shift, but that's just the cynical side of me that's ignoring everything else. So
and he always has skated hard, right? I don't think there was ever a time where Josh Anderson wasn't trying. There was a time where he was playing.
He was always trying to score, though. He wasn't always trying to make his team better. He was always trying to score. And this year, he's trying to help the team. And you're right. That's as you get older, we all know you have to make some sacrifices and you have to change your strategy. And you're 100% right. It's humbling, and Andrew, he made it to this point by doing what he had been doing last year that failed, right? Like you get to a certain point in your life, and everything you've done, you got to change it. Forget it. I know that's how you got here, but completely forget it. And most guys will say absolutely not. They'll head to Europe or something, So credit with Josh Anderson. He's genuinely put together a team first approach, and that was not always the case with him.
100%. He's worked his absolute butt off and is contributing in multiple different ways now when he was a one-tool player for a long time. So he still should have had like 15 goals last year. That was so unlucky. I know, it was so
unlucky. I'm going to look at his shooting percentage.
Well, there was a while there last year where Anderson led the Canadiens in expected goals at even strength because he was getting breakaways constantly.
Like this year?
No, last year.
Oh.
Where he was playing poorly, on the defensive side, but he was getting his shots. He just wasn't scoring. But yeah, the change in him has been incredible.
Last year, right? Okay, here's his shooting in his career. 14, 11, 13, 12, 13, 6, 13 this year again. So like last year, I know that he didn't have a great year, but a lot of that was really bad luck. It genuinely was terrible luck. He should have had 20 goals. It's minimum there on his average shooting.
Yeah, it's wild. That's why you can't read too much into single seasons. All right, folks, I gotta go to bed soon. It was great to be here with you tonight. Make sure you like the stream if you really liked it, because that helps us, with the repeat viewers and the viewers over the night to watch us on replay. And if you really like it, hit subscribe here on Game Over Montreal and hit that reminder bell as well, because then it'll actually tell you when we upload stuff or go live. And if you really, really like us, go to thegameovernetwork.com. Check out our merch store. Check out our Patreon. And hey, join our community Discord, because I'm in there every single day talking to people in the company and answering questions if you have any. So go in there, ask me a question. I'm usually around. I might not answer right away because I've got a bajillion things to do. But everyone who messages me, I try to answer because that's just who I am. I have ADHD.
Way better person than I. I've reached the point in my life where it's like a lottery if I reply to things.
I either reply right away or I check it and then I'm like, I'm going to reply to that, and then I forget that it ever happened.
I was going to say I'll be on. I was sure I was going to be on a Monday, but it's Kay is on. So that's Kay has been doing such a great job. I don't know if you saw our show the other night. It was really, really fun. But it's just like even the show with Laura where she was carrying the conversation. She was doing so great. So I'm beyond proud of Kay right now. And anyone that's on Twitter, go ahead and follow her. It's just in terms of the thing I like the most about Kay, she can't help but be herself. And for a lot of people where you have a hard time reading them, that is one of the best assets to have. You know what I mean? Like you can see the true person. And I think that's really just a great quality that she has. So anyways,
I honestly
say, yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's honestly the most important quality in any kind of public facing personality right now is just being honest, being authentically yourself.
Unapologetically authentic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. So you could do like me and get fired for it from some teams, but Kay has been just fantastic. And it goes to show that the community, because don't forget, just last year, Kay was, in the chats, is really where we want to source our growth from. You know what I mean? So it's not just when we ask for likes and all that. We appreciate it, but also if you think you like a future in this, or if you have any kind of ideas, let us know. Hit us up. You never know what's going to happen. Shoot your shot, basically.
Exactly. We're a young, growing company that is looking for a lot of help and trying to do a lot of big things. So if you have an idea, reach out. We're not going to bite the hand that feeds. The people who are in this chat are part of the show.
Yeah.
Every single night, we don't know everything. We get stuff wrong. People correct us in the chat and make a better product for us.
I don't think I've ever made a mistake, but speak for yourself there. But I've never made a mistake.
Never made a mistake. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us here.
Andrew, I promise I will have slept with the day before, or possibly the 2 days before. That's
don't
my
make
promise to you.
You can't keep.
That's fair. That's a really good point there. Bye, Claire. Bye, Claire.